I want Hilary Swank in the next Terminator movie so bad.
There is nothing in this world that you give me to do to hug a robot.
It's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice.
Music's the core of this movie.
I was born again to watch this movie.
You'll find redeeming things and you'll be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
There was no bone saw.
Just John hamming it up over here.
2.5 out of 3 of us recommend it.
Everybody loves talking about movies. Let's talk about movies.
Welcome back to another bonus episode here at the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. In the office tonight, we have Josh. How's it going, man?
Good. How's it going, Casey?
It's good. Good. Did you get my little pun there?
I got it. That's why it took me a little half second to respond.
Well, nobody else knows about it yet. And Allie, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is my wife, Allie. She's a huge fan of the film or show series we're going to be talking about. It's a television series that ran from March 24th of 2005 until May 16th of 2013. Just based off of those dates and the words Bears beats Battlestar Galactica, you should know what we're talking about. Josh, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about The Office. It's not going to be in the title?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then they're already going to know.
It will be in the title. Maybe I should do a surprise episode.
You put Parks and Rec and then
No,
surprise.
if you put The Office, then people will want to listen to it because everybody loves The Office.
That could be true.
If you don't like The Office, there is a special place that we have for you. It's called prison.
It's called Your Mother's Butt.
Then shove it up your butt.
Oh, man. So The Office is an incredibly quotable, amazing film series that aired for, oh, man, just, what was it, like 7 years of wonder? Was it longer than that? 8 years?
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years. So it's a beautiful, beautiful film series based around a fictional paper company in the wonderful hills of Scranton, PA. I don't really know if there are hills around there, but essentially when I started dating Allie, and after we'd been, married for a while, she always watched The Office, and I had only watched the first 3 seasons back in the day, and so I sat down and watched all of it with her, and incredibly wonderful and quotable film. Also, once I joined in the family, I guess it's not a film, it's a TV series. I keep calling it a film. I don't know what's wrong with me today. But then, one of the first times I came around the Wiltbank home, Josh's home, he was wearing a Dunder Mifflin shirt too, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You had a couple. I just know you've had a few of them over the years. And so I've always known that this was something kind of we're getting into. Tell me, why do you think that The Office is such a quotable series, Al?
I think it's because there's just so many good one-liners that even out of context will just make you smile. Like, I'll just look at Josh sometimes at dinner and I'll just say something and he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's probably because both of us have seen The Office more times than is probably socially acceptable. It's entertaining. It's something that I like to have just as background noise, honestly, just because it'll always make me smile, and it's always kind of like, this sounds kind of cheesy, but it's just always kind of like there for me, and it just makes me smile, and I know it'll put me in a good mood.
Yeah, like the other day I was watching The Office on my lunch break, and as I was returning from my lunch break, I was just sort of finishing up wherever I was at, and there was a certain part that made me smile really big, and my boss came over and asked me if I got some really good news or what was going on, because I was literally smiling and doing my best to not laugh out loud in my office. It was great. And just so you guys know, it was the part where they have the welcome back party for Oscar that's Hispanic themed, Mexican themed, and it shows Ryan, and he has the lemonade, and he's putting the Enya over the end of the lemonade to make it Mexican lemonade. And he's just like, I don't know. So even if it's not quotable, just the actors as well and the things that are going on, the writing in it is so amazing that it makes it something that you can say. And it's so quotable and it's so unique as well that, like Ali said, you can just say it and someone who's seen the series can understand you in a heartbeat, in a moment. And especially it can be funny as an inside joke if you have a family like ours where, you know, our parents have never seen it. And so we can just reference it all the time to each other and laugh.
And my mom just rolls her eyes.
Yeah, she just stares blankly at us and has no clue what's going on. So.
It's always good because I know when you guys are doing the Office quotes because it goes over 3/4 of the table's head, you know, and I'm one of those most of the time where I'm just like, wait, what? And you're like, it's an Office quote. And I'm like, oh yes. Sorry, I don't know it as deeply and intimately as you both do. But here's a couple of cool things I find very fascinating about The Office, right? So originally The Office was a British TV series, right? It had like 3 or 4 seasons over there. As far as I understand, it was written by one of my all-time favorite comedians, though, which is Ricky Gervais. And his character in The Office, you know, it's just so awkward and weird the whole time in the British TV series. And then once you add, you know, what's that guy's name who took over? Who's Michael Scott?
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell into that mix. You know, he...
Sorry, I'm disappointed.
I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank here. I'm trying to, like, formulate something that makes sense to people. But it's just so great. And then... What's another really cool thing before we kind of jump into all the fun and quirkiness of it? This is shot essentially as like a single camera documentary, the way that an actual documentary would be filmed, right? And so these people are working in an office scenario, and then sometimes they'll just like blankly stare into the camera. You'll just see them doing menial tasks around it. So it's super relatable because, one, everyone sometimes stares off into space at work, and two, everyone has those tasks at work that they wish that they did not have to do, but still accomplish because they know that their job depends on it.
Some fun facts about The Office just from what Casey mentioned. So a lot of the times when people are doing menial tasks or other stuff in the background, they're really just doing that stuff. Like if they're playing solitaire or whatever, it's just they're like, hey, I mean, your character's not sick or anything, and even though you're not in this scene, you got to be here. Like you can play solitaire on your computer. And so that's what they would, you know, be doing on set. Just playing a game of solitaire in the background, doing something like that.
I'm pretty sure they had all of the computers hooked up with like internet as well, because then they could just like go on and like surf the internet and do different things on the computers just so that it looked like they were actually working, even though they were just background.
Working air quotes.
Yeah.
Except Creed Bratton's computer was probably not hooked up.
.creedthoughts.com.gov.
whatever.
Yeah.
/www/creedthoughts.
And here's some other fun facts, just in case any of you guys aren't as familiar with The Office. And if you are, you'll just be like, oh, yeah, I know that. And we can like give each other a little high five next time we see each other. You'd be like, I knew that. At the very beginning, when John Krasinski got the role of Jim in The Office, he went to Scranton with some buddies and he filmed what is now seen as some of the opening scenes of The Office when they play the theme song. John Krasinski actually filmed that with like a little homemade camcorder with him and his buddies.
A homemade camcorder, that's impressive.
Like a little,
Like a handheld,
you know what I mean.
handheld camera.
One of those old ones that we would, you know, take to Disneyland.
like the
and
like the
stuff.
6 megapixel cameras that everyone had in
man.
like 2003. Also, I found out something that the actual like building, that tall reddish building in the intro, that's actually, I believe, a paper company as well.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's actually like the Scranton Pages or something like that. Something I was reading a few blurbs about it. I'll
Yeah.
double check here.
Well, because they try to keep it as real as they can to a Scranton paper company while filming the entire series out of a warehouse in Los Angeles.
Well, fun fact, they actually did film the first season in an actual office building, but the sound quality and the lighting and everything was just a lot harder to do. And so they basically took that and built it in a sound studio in Los Angeles, where so that the sound quality and everything could be good, but it looked exactly the same, which is pretty impressive.
It is so impressive because I honestly, until I read that one time, did not even know that they had changed scenes. Like they
for
had
sure.
changed places because they made it look so realistic and so like the first one. There are some little slight changes, and so if you watch the first season versus the other season, now knowing that, you can see that something's a little bit off in the first season. You can be like, wow, I didn't know those differences. But yeah, so just stuff like that is super interesting to me, that I love thinking about The Office.
I'm sure the characters, like the actors, I mean, appreciated the change because the lighting is definitely more flattering in the later seasons rather than that first season. The first season is definitely like office fluorescent lighting that everyone hates.
Well, and also the thing is that I love how much they keep it real with when they have scenes that are outside of the office. A lot of them are in Los Angeles just for convenience, but then a lot of them, they had crews who were in Scranton who filmed at a place. It's not necessarily that they filmed like inside of that place. They would more do that later, but just like when they would go to what's one of the restaurants that they always talk about going to?
Oh, the bar they always go to is
Also,
called
Poor Richards.
Poor Richards.
So
yes.
Poor Richards is a real place.
Chili's.
Chili's. Well, Chili's is a real
I feel
place.
God in this Chili's tonight.
Well, so there's one, I don't remember what it is, but it starts with a C. That's like a seafood
Cooper's.
place. Cooper's is a real place. And like when they go there, they have a shot that shows this like little White House seafood place. And that's like a legit place in Scranton.
Michael and Holly go there, and Michael calls it business romantic.
Business casual, business romantic.
Is that how he puts it down, like on his like work
And
receipts?
they're arguing about Meredith. That's what it is. Anyway.
With the steak coupons.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm sure we could keep on going to that, but just
Yeah.
wanted to give a little throw out to everyone who worked on The Office for doing it so realistically to be a tiny little place in Pennsylvania while really shooting in Los Angeles. So good on you guys. Kudos.
I hope you're listening to this. If you are, I would love to meet all of the stars.
Just put it on Twitter
me up.
and tweet Jenna Fisher.
I love her.
She'll probably
and
respond.
Angela Kinsey. Angela Kinsey responds to a lot of things on Instagram.
This will be your opportunity to do some rad stuff.
We should totally shout out their new podcast that's coming. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
The one with Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey. So they're starting
Office Ladies.
The Office Ladies. That's right. And they're going to watch an episode of The Office and then just talk about everything that happened behind the scenes. And let me tell you what, no offense to you guys in your podcast, but I've literally never been so excited for a podcast in my life.
Don't worry, I'm more excited for it than I am for our own podcast. So
I'm disappointed in both of you.
Listen, I'm
No,
still going to
it's-
listen to this
It's
one.
all
I
good.
love it.
It's all good. I just have to give you both a hard time since you rattled my cage there. No, I don't know what to say. But let's kind of jump into this a little bit more. So, because there are so many episodes in the series, right? I really want to know what was the cringiest moment of The Office, because it has a lot of really awkward moments that I, as a viewer, sometimes I sweat a little bit. I get a little uncomfortable in the couch. So, tell me, like, what was the cringiest thing that happened in your opinion on this series?
Well, and this is a great topic to talk about because I know that I've talked to people when I say that I love The Office. They'll say, I just can't watch The Office because Michael is just too cringy. Mm-hmm. And they just can't do it. And there is only one episode of The Office that I consistently skip, or at least skip parts of. And I think everyone knows what episode I'm talking about. And it's Scott's Tots.
Oh.
I can't watch it. It makes me so sad and so uncomfortable. I just can't. I don't know. So I'm very stereotypical when it comes to my cringiest moment. I can't watch it.
I thought you were going to say Diversity Day.
Oh my gosh, I love Diversity Day.
So here's the thing is that so many of them are like, oh, I cringe so hard and all that thing and all that stuff. You really, when you watch The Office, you need to keep in mind when it was made and how much of a difference there is from 2005, 2006 to today's world. You know, watching those first few seasons of The Office, that almost none of those episodes would be thrown up on the air today because of how controversial it is. But if you watch it in the mindset from back then, it can be extremely, extremely funny. And so if you say you cringe super hard, I also understand it, but at the same time, try to look at it a different way and enjoy it the way it was meant to be enjoyed instead of just focusing on today's mindset and saying this is so bad and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and as someone that tends to pick apart things a little bit for things like that, I love The Office because I feel like it was just... Like, there's a few things where I just can't quite get past them, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with that. There's an episode where Michael, and I won't say this word because I'm one of those people that's really against using it, but he uses the R word, and every time I'm like, I want to punch you in your actual face because it's so cringy, and like, it makes me so mad every time. I don't know. Like you said, there are definitely cringy moments in The Office, and I think that there's a certain amount of that's why it's kind of lasted through now is because people watch that and they're just like, oh man, you could never say that today. And there's something about it that just you realize it wasn't meant to be offensive to someone on purpose. It was meant to be offensive in a way that was like, that's your office coworker who's an offensive jerk. And it's like, it allows you to kind of get out some of that tension just by laughing at it. Because in real life, it's not funny.
I think it also brings a little bit of awareness into the fact of how uncomfortable that can make people in these situations too, right? I say this with a lot of honesty. I learned a lot how to interact in an office place by watching The Office and how not to interact, because I used to work on a farm doing sales and all sorts of things where the environment can be a little bit different than inside of a building working with the same people every day. And so, yeah, I learned a lot of how not to interact with people and how to better interact with people. And so, yeah.
You could pretty much use The Office as Michael's color-coded notes that he uses to talk about clients. Most of them just mean go ahead and stop talking about it. Like
100%. No, for real.
I
That's
have
exactly.
green, which means go ahead and shut up about it. So you can use The Office as that sort of direction for your workplace. Watch The Office and then don't do that stuff.
It's a how not to guide.
How not to Office. What about you, Josh? What was the cringiest thing that you can think of?
Do you have one? Because I made a little list.
So, off the top of my head, it's Diversity Day. That was like the one that really sticks out in my mind because it's funny, but it's also like, I'm like, the part when Kelly comes in and he's like, hello, you want to buy my cookie? And then he just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And then she smacks him in the face. And I was like, that type of thing actually happens more often than I would like to admit in the places that I have worked historically.
Her slapping him in the face is so satisfying, though.
It
Because everyone wanted to do it. And the fact that she did it, I was like, oh, man, I think everyone was like, okay, we're going to like this Kelly person.
Kelly Kapoor.
Even though she's the worst.
But yeah, that's for me the one I can think of the most. And everything that Andy does in his early times there to undermine Dwight is pretty cringy because he's a freaking dingus the whole time.
Yeah, I was talking about this with them before we started the podcast. I'm, as I always do, I'm always at some point in The Office when I rewatch it because it's just a constant thing. If you don't have anything else to watch, we'll turn on The Office. I'm here right now. And I'm partway through season 3 where we first meet Andy and he comes over to Scranton. And I forgot how much you could hate Andy because people are like, oh my gosh, I hate Andy the whole series. He's the worst. There are obviously bad parts of Andy throughout the entire show, but I completely hated him during a lot of season 3. But I don't the rest of the show. Like, I actually like Andy for most of the time. So anyway, here's my little mini list, and I made it and I put it in order, but this is probably not the order I would always put it in. These are my top 5 cringiest moments from The Office. Number 5 is when Michael says, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you for the first time, Mr. and Mrs. Bob Vance.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe I didn't think of that.
Before they go to the other one. So just in case you don't remember, Phyllis and Bob are getting married, and he has Phyllis say, I do, and Michael yells that, and then the preacher just has to go, now do you, Bob, take her. Oh, man, so awkward. Number 4. This one probably is higher, but number 4 is Kathy in Jim's hotel room, because we all know that person who they'll push things to the limit, and then the moment someone calls them out on them, they'll be like, oh, I was just joking. Like, what were you thinking? Like something like that, and I hate that person.
Oh, yeah. Kathy's the worst.
I'm thinking of someone in my mind right now, which I love that person, but I hate that person. It's not you. Don't worry.
Thank you.
But it's like, because they do that and they're doing it, but they think that they're just like getting away because they're like, oh, I was joking. Oh my gosh. Number 3 is Scott's Tots. And I wouldn't say it's the whole episode because there's like side plots of that episode, which are good, which is why the other day I got to Scott's Tots and I'd say it's about 50-50 for me that I skip it or don't skip it. And when I don't skip it, like I didn't the other day, like I don't remember what it was, but the side plot of that show is super amazing.
It's the Employee of the Month one when Dwight gets Jim to do Employee of the Month and they deliver the cake with his face on it.
That one's hard too, though. That's cringy.
No, it's so cringy, but I literally will fast forward through the Scott's Tots parts so I can watch those because I think it's so funny when they're like, son of a bitch, Jim Halpert.
All right, we'll go to the number 2 employee, Pam Halpert. Oh, that's funny. Oh, because that's the thing is that's why you can't skip it because you'll miss little gems like one of me and Allie's most quoted gems ever. When Pam gets the number 2 of The Office, she's like, hey, don't judge me. Like, I've been working really hard. I doubled my sales. And Eddie's like, what, from 2 to 4? Yup. See, that's one of the best moments ever, and I love it. Number 2 is a joint one because it's the same relationship with Michael and Carol. One part of it is when he proposes to her at Diwali, which is super cringy, and the other part of it is when she breaks up with him because he photoshopped himself onto a Christmas card of her and her ex-husband on a skiing trip with her kids.
I remember that. That was so weird. I remember
bad.
last time you asked me, I was like, wait, did he really do that? And you're like, yeah, just watch.
That is so bad. Like, if someone, can you imagine someone doing that? That's just like a instant relationship ender.
We should just borrow a holiday card off the internet and just
Photoshop our faces on
all
it.
of us. Yeah. Well, because not even that, also at that same moment is when he was like, oh, don't worry about this. Like, I got these tickets to Sandals, Jamaica and stuff. And he's like, you better find the skimpiest bikini. And you're just like,
Stop.
it's already so
talking.
bad. And it's so much worse.
Isn't Carol played by Steve Carell's actual wife?
Yeah. Fun fact. And that's sort of why she shows up in the last episode when, you know, spoilers if you haven't seen it. Hopefully you have since you're listening. Pam sells the house and she's back as a real estate agent. Since they got Steve Carell to come back, she came back as well. So, fun fact.
She also shows back up when Michael has to tell everyone that he has herpes, which is a fun episode. Also very cringeworthy.
It's true.
It's literally an ingrown mustache hair. Okay, anyway.
And the number 1, which, like I said, could change is Toby touching Pam's leg and then jumping the fence and going to Costa Rica.
I just love when he jumps the fence.
He's like, I'm going to go home now. Well, because I love it. As cringy as it is, and everyone, because not even just you, everyone in the office is feeling that cringe. Like, you can see them all looking at the camera and just like, what the heck?
Jim's face is my favorite because his eyes just get all big.
So yeah, that, and then I saw a meme today posted by one of the many office pages that I follow. That was one of those photos taken seconds before disaster, and it was literally Toby's hand just like a foot above Pam's leg right before he was about to touch it. Oh man. Anyway, so you know, there's that. I was gonna do it quick, but I didn't.
Isn't that the same episode where Toby wants to teach Pam how to throw a football and she's like, I know how to throw a football, and she throws it and she hits somebody? And I keep confusing it with Phyllis because there's the episode where Jim ducks and the soccer ball hits Phyllis in the face with Charles Minor.
Yeah, Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Which is quite hilarious, but also really cringy of Jim because he's like led this lie that he's like, oh yeah, I play soccer. And he really doesn't.
Because he's just trying to get in good with Charles Minor because he was wearing a tuxedo when he showed up. As a classic prank against Dwight.
So good.
What is the worst episode in your opinion? Is there one episode besides Scott's Tots that stands out as the worst episode of all times? Or even if Scott's Tots is that one?
I don't know if there's any episode that's just like terrible that I just don't like, but I don't know why. I just am not a fan of the Benihana Christmas episode.
Isn't that the one where Michael drags Meredith to AA?
No, that's
Is that
the
a different
Moroccan
one?
Christmas one
right.
where
She dances and
dances
and her hair's on fire.
yes, the Benihana Christmas one is when they have the drive. He brings the old bike and then gives it to the waitresses that they bring from Benihana because that's right after he breaks up with Carol.
That's the same.
And then he goes to
episode.
Jamaica with Jan. But I like the first little part, but then it's just like I just don't know why. I don't. But there's so many good parts of it too, because then there's the part where Dwight is like, oh, you cut, like, this is how you slaughter the goose.
Oh yeah, because they're flirting with the waitresses,
Yes.
and Dwight doesn't know what's going on, and
Because he's
like,
sitting
hey, what's
further
going on?
away. So never mind. I do like that episode, but there's just that's the thing is I can't choose one episode that I don't like. But like I don't love the Michael Scott Paper Company episodes.
I do.
A lot of people like them a lot, but I just am not a big fan.
So just to play off of the Benihana Christmas one really quick, I think that the second half of that episode really drags a lot.
Yes.
Like there's stuff that moves the season's story along as far as relationships and stuff, but there's other stuff that I dislike. The one part that I think might be my favorite part of the whole entire episode is, even though it's cringy, when he has to mark his girlfriend's arm because he can't tell them apart
Michael is probably the most racist person.
in the entire world.
Like, he's just like that horrible, like, racist person that doesn't think that they're racist, but they totally are. And like, we all know that person. Like we said earlier, he's just a how not to interact with other human beings.
He does do a lot of weird, distasteful things, I think.
Very off color at times.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. But at the same time, he does a lot of heartwarming things, I think.
He does.
Personally.
I think that my worst episode ever that I don't like would be sorry, I had it in my brain and now I can't remember. Oh, okay. So now that the crickets are done, I think it was a good episode because they really did bring back a lot of good moments, but it was also bad because it was kind of just a bottle episode, was the banker, where the guy comes to assess the risk management of the place, and he talks with Michael and Toby, and they just go over some of the really good moments they've had previously in the series. Mm-hmm. And while it is good because it brings all those back, it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And even the new jokes they have aren't stellar. Like, they have like the Computron.
I think that's funny. And I think it's funny when Michael is like, oh, I left a copy of great mystery novels in Toby's favorite stall, so we have some time. And I'm like, oh man, it's horrible, but like that you learn people's bathroom habits when you work with them.
Find her some files. I'd probably say that one for me, just because it doesn't move the story at all, and while you get good moments, just a bottle episode.
That one kind of feels like running on a treadmill, if I remember right, because Computron, funny, but then I felt like the rest of it was a lull for me. It was kind of like a gradual wave.
And while I mentioned, just really quick, it's been something I think about. While I mentioned the bottle episode, I wanted to throw in another funny little appendage that ties this and one of my other favorite shows, Community, together. Because talk about a bottle episode, I learned that term from Community, when they do a bottle episode literally, but they make it. It's one of the best episodes of the series. One of the only really, really good and funny moments from season 6 is they're planning for Garrett's wedding, and Abed, like usual, is making a documentary. And many, many times during the course of that episode, Annie will just like look at the camera and roll her eyes, and Abed's like, stop jimming the camera. So quick little side note and shout out for Community. But anyways.
That's funny. I actually was going to ask you, how does this compare to Community? How would you rank the series? Which one is stronger in your mind?
I think that The Office is a lot more rewatchable, and I'd say that I'd be more up for an Office episode as like in the background, or just like a lazy like night where I just want to turn on something and be mindlessly entertained for a little while. While Community, I enjoy it more as a thoughtful piece, sort of. You know, the writing is really intricate and it's really, really well done. So while the writing for The Office is extremely funny, I think that the writing for Community is intelligent and it's funny in a smart way, so that if you've got your mind turned on and you're like really paying attention to the episode, it can be even more funny, because I think sometimes when you engage in something heavily, the return on investment can be higher for you. And I think that's what Community is for me. So I'd probably put The Office as better overall for me, because it stays strong pretty much the entire time. Pretty much. But, you know, so that's my thoughts on The Office versus Community.
Not bad. Well, Al, you've been waiting for this moment for a few minutes. What are your favorite Michael Scott moments?
I honestly love Michael and Pam's relationship most of the time. There's definitely moments where I'm like, stop freaking being such a douchebag, Michael. Like when he is leaving the show and he goes to he's like at the airport and he didn't get to say bye to Pam because she was pricing shredders, and by that we mean she went to the movies. He is at the airport and she comes like running up to him holding her shoes. She had to have, this was post 9/11, so she had to have bought a ticket and gone through security because she was holding her shoes. And she goes running up and like gives him a hug to like say goodbye. And like that moment is just like, it's just so sweet. And it's just kind of like, despite all of it and like despite how like awful he was, and it kind of ties in with when Jim says goodbye to him too. And he's just like, it turns out that you're actually a really good boss. And just like those little moments where people realize it's like even that person that drives you crazy at work or in your life, you can find those positive things about. And every single person has those positive things about them. And it's always worth looking for the good in people, because you can find really good things in people that maybe drive you a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I think that that's a beautiful moment. I think like personally one of my favorite, I don't know what you call it, my favorite Michael moments, really, because I don't know the film, it's the series. Oh my gosh. I don't know the series as well as either of the two of you. One of my favorite things is when he begins dating Holly, and he's just happy being his authentic self. He's done dating Jan. He's done like kind of doing like just trying to fit in with someone, and he's just being himself and fitting in so perfectly, which proves that nobody is better than you.
I think he becomes a lot less unbearable too when he's dating Holly, because he does get to be himself and he's not trying to be someone that he's not. Because I think when Michael is at his worst is when he's really trying to be someone that he's not really.
Which is 70% of his character. But
oh yeah,
at the same time, when he's around Holly, he does do those things, but he also behaves at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like
he does it in a way that's actually like in real life you would actually find funny, rather than like if it was for real, a lot of the things Michael said, you would probably slap that person. Yeah, I think that he's at his best with Holly. He's still goofy. He's still funny. He's still weird. He's such a weirdo, but it's in a way that's a lot more endearing.
Mm-hmm. That's why I like it so much.
I love that.
What about you, Josh? What's your favorite Michael moment?
Again, I can't pick. I promise this time I'll make it a quick 3.
Okay.
This time. Number 3 would probably be, as awful as it is, the way he interacts with Toby sometimes. More specifically, one of my favorite lines from the entire movie is like, you want to hear a lie? What? I think you're great. You're my best friend. Like, that is, it's gold, because you feel so bad for Toby at sometimes, but then also sometimes you are like Michael, and you're just like, Toby,
why?
You're the worst.
Well, and can we talk about how one of the greatest like gifts of all time is the one where he's like, no, God, no, please.
Yeah. And so those are my 2. But then I think that one of my top ones is, like you said, when Michael, as funny as he is and crazy as he is, can get surprisingly real, which I'm going to turn the 3 into a 4 because I was going to pick one, but I couldn't pick. One of my favorites is when he sort of realizes that Aaron sees him as a father figure. And so even though he realizes that and it gets real, he's also, he's also really funny about it, because he's like, I'm not your father. And she's like, but I care what you think about him. And he sort of realizes that. And then he plays on it with her. So he's just like, go to your room, young lady, and like stuff like that. And so it's really cute. As well as in season 2, I believe, when they're on the booze cruise and he talks to Jim about his feelings for Pam. And when he's like, never, ever give up. And when he talks to him, it's just like so moving, and you're just like, where is this guy like the other 99% of his life? And so when he does things like that you break down, it's awesome.
Well, and kind of adding on to that, the episode where the bird dies and like Michael's really fixated on death because his old boss dies, and then Pam starts to realize, Ed Truck, and Pam starts to realize that he's not really upset about Ed Truck being dead. He's not really upset about the bird being dead. He's worried that nobody's going to care when he's gone. And you realize that he's a really, like, you know, despite the fact that he's a fictional character, you realize that he's a real person who actually has feelings. He's not just like, you know, this goofy guy. He's someone that's he's been kind of goofy his whole life. And this is, you know, he's kind of learned to cope with it by being rude and inappropriate. And I love the way that it kind of ties in like what you were saying with what I was saying with, I love, you know, him and Pam's relationship, because Pam just really realizes that and says, you know, that just because this bird was alone doesn't mean that he didn't have people that cared about him. And Michael just kind of like realizes that he's not alone. And I think that's good for all of us to realize that even with our personality traits sometimes that can drive other people crazy, that there's still people that care about us.
Well, yeah, because they talk about it then, and then also one of my other favorite moments is when she has that interview in season 9 with the one guy. What's his name?
Oh, man.
The actor.
I can't remember his name, but he was one of the ones that
Saul?
was also up for Michael Scott.
From Better Call Saul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know his name, but he is Saul.
I'll look him up.
Yeah, she'll look him up. He's great. When she has that moment and she goes and she realizes, oh, this guy's basically Michael Scott. Because like Allie said, he was one of the ones who was also up for the role of Michael Scott, but didn't end up getting it. And he was so great. And so he was really, really funny in that sort of way. And when he asks, he's like, sometimes these people, they respect me, but do they like me? Like, do you think they like me, Pam? And in a symbolic way that obviously she's thinking and talking about Michael, she says yes. And she's so adamant about it that, as crazy as Michael is, as inappropriate as he can be, that he's a real person. And like in that episode, he's afraid because he's a man who's in his, his late 30s, who's not married to anyone. And that's, one of the things that he really, really wants in life. As funny as he is, he really wants to be with someone. That's why he tries so hard, and why it can get really weird for him when he's dating people is because he just really wants to end up with somebody, and he wants to be loved and have someone be there
and
for him.
have catch-up fights.
And I bought this condo to fill with children.
Anyways.
It's Bob Odenkirk.
Ah, yeah. Dang,
Bob
I did know that.
Odenkirk. I just know him as Saul because he's such a good Saul. Because I loved Breaking Bad and I watched a few seasons of Better Call Saul. But that was great. Wonderful. I loved all of those things about Michael. And I think you both kind of have, like, in a weird sense, in a way to say it, like, you both have built some sort of real relationship in a way with the character of Michael Scott, because I think, honestly, there's a big part of The Office that can just be carried with you anywhere you go. And I think that's why I wanted to talk The Office, was because it's such a relatable TV series. And it just is very endearing in the long run because you get attached to all the characters. Honestly, I was like, oh, Josh, we're going to read the character list. And I looked at it from it. I was like, we will take 4 minutes at least to read the characters' names. And then another 6 minutes to kind of describe who they are and what's going on. Everyone in the cast and the characters do so well at like bringing you in. You almost feel like a family is a part of The Office, weirdly enough. And I think that's the way they shot it really connects you in a really interesting way. Next on the list of kind of questions I had to ask was, what's your favorite moment in The Office? Like, overall favorite moment that really hit the feels?
So as far as moments go, not episodes, but moments, my favorite moment, kind of keeping with the heartwarming theme, when Michael leaves and they sing him the song after they get kicked out of the restaurant that they're at for the Dundies. Mm-hmm. And they go back to the office with Will Ferrell's terrible character.
Just a side note, if you're like, oh my gosh, I hated Will Ferrell being there and all this stuff, just so you know, you're supposed to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? He was not meant to be a replacement Michael Scott. He was meant to be, here's some comedy of an awful character that will get us to the end of the season.
Yes.
So just
anyway,
understand that.
But just Will Ferrell's awful character. It's such a sweet moment when they all start singing and he's like, wait, something's happening. And they start singing. And let me tell you what, that just kind of like gets me in my heart every time because they just like are singing this funny song. And I think that my favorite part of it is it's heartwarming. And then there's the part where Creed sings, I watch you when you sleep.
I think it's all funny because then right after that, Oscar's like, I forgive you for kissing me. Well, yeah, because then it hits you so hard in the feels and then it gives you the Michael has the feels but also funny moment. Oh, yeah.
Where you're like,
this is going to hurt like a mother.
I can't cry. This is The Office. But you're like kind of trying not to cry because it's so sweet but also funny.
There's a few times, so talking about my favorite moment, there's a few times where I will allow, because I know it's going to happen, and I will definitely let The Office make me cry because since I'm so invested in it, I'm really big on it. Going along with sort of your feels moments, one of my favorite parts of The Office, like I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm a sucker for like cue, like voiceover wrap-ups and stuff like that, and so I do really like the end of the series while a lot of people don't.
I love that you brought this up because it's one of my favorites.
Well, yeah, and sorry, I'll go back to it, but I was gonna say like I do like that, but another one that even though it's not like a voiceover wrap-up, it's meant to be a sort of different feel of The Office, is I love when Jim and Pam get married. Jim and Pam getting married, while it's not my favorite episode of The Office, is one of the ones that has stayed with me for forever. I love when Jim and Pam get married because obviously so much of the series is focused on their relationship, and it goes through good times and bad times and, not even being together times and stuff like that. And so when they get together and they have the stupid, the song going on, the dance for, we probably can't sing that without some sort of copyright something.
Oh, no, it's good.
So, but when that's going and it's going over, and it's funny because the characters from The Office are dancing and you see Jim and Pam getting on the boat and everything. And the very last scene before Kevin's feet in the ice machine scene.
That's Casey's cringiest episode.
That is my cringiest moment. I just want to point that out now. Ugh. My dogs are barking. That's really gross.
My dogs are barking.
The box shoes were a hit.
I got 6 numbers. One more, and it would have been a whole telephone number.
Anyway, sorry. No, but so that moment, I will, and some people tell me they're like, why? At that moment, I'll let that moment make me cry every single time I watch it. Because I don't know why, something about me, and y'all can make fun of me or whatever, something about me when people really fall in love and they're with the person that they're supposed to be with, that just moves me a ton. I started watching The Office before I met who's now my wife, and that was just something that I, sort of like Michael, like we talked about, that I longed for. I was just super afraid that I would never find the person that I was supposed to fall in love with and be with, for the rest of my life. And so when I watched that, it moved me so much because you saw them, and obviously the whole series building up to it. It was such a touching moment, and just to have it finally happen. And even though that song's upbeat and stuff, it's also really moving. I don't know how to describe it, how that song that's meant to be a teenage pop song can hit me right in the feels. But it does it every time, and I let it, and I'm super happy to.
I love that part too a lot. Except for Kevin putting his freaking feet in the ice machine. I will harp on that all freaking day because I do not like getting ice from hotels, and that made me never ever want to get ice from hotels ever again. I just have to call that out. So sorry. But no, I think that those are beautiful moments, and I think that those are truly moments that, they just warm the soul, right? They warm the soul. What is your favorite Office romance? We kind of talked about the Jim and Pam thing. Outside of Jim and Pam's relationship, what is the best romance outside of them? I'm going to go with Kevin and his pot of Kevin's special chili.
That doesn't count.
Okay, I take back that is my I cannot watch that.
I hate that when people say that's their cringiest moment. I love it.
No, it makes me so sad. Every single time, it makes my heart feel how you feel when you see an old man eating by himself at a restaurant? That is how that moment makes me feel inside.
Wait, I like eating alone at restaurants and going to the movie by myself.
Old.
But an old man eating by himself at a restaurant, probably because there's nobody else that's gonna go. That doesn't make your heart sad.
It's too funny to make my heart sad. I'm sorry.
It makes me
you
feel
for
so
him.
bad. I have to fast forward it because it makes me want to cry. It's so sad. He just he puts his heart into making this chili, and then he spills it all over the ground. And he's talking. It just makes me really sad. I'm sorry. Total sidetrack there. But that is my cringiest moment because it makes me want to cry.
Oh, man.
Well, Josh and I just laughed through your whole
You guys suck.
moment.
I know. Thanks.
But no, really, what is your favorite Office romance outside of Jim and Pam?
I would probably say, just a quick side note, because I have my little soap operas about The Office. This is not my favorite Office romance, but when people talk about how much they're like Aaron, that they don't get Michael and Holly, I just want to punch those people.
Right.
Because I think those, when you talk about soulmates, a lot of times people have soulmates. Sometimes you think, people don't really have soulmates, whichever side you're on. Those two were literally built for each other. They are mirrors of each other and meant to be together. So whether you believe in soulmates or not, Michael and Holly are soulmates, okay? It's a fictional world, so there can be no matter what. Anyways, second, I would probably say that my real actual favorite couple in The Office, besides Jim and Pam, because Jim and Pam would probably be it, would be, I'll say Ryan and Kelly.
I hate you.
Just because
They're
of
the worst.
They are the worst, but that's why they're so. I wouldn't say they're like my favorite couple. I would say that their relationship is the most entertaining for us to watch.
True.
It's so bad and it's so dysfunctional up to the very end. They're
The
literally
last episode.
running off into the sunset together. I finally mastered commitment as he leaves his child behind with Nellie to run off with Kelly. Oh, I love watching their, as much as it can be cringy and everything like that. It's the best. So there you go.
I want to change my answer, but I want to wait until after you say yours.
All right. Well, I think I got to go with Dwight and Angela because despite how awful Angela really is, she goes through a lot to get to the point where she's finally like with Dwight. She, is married to the senator who is
State
definitely thank you, Oscar, who is definitely not into her. She dates Andy, who does not deserve the fact that she was cheating with Dwight the whole time they were together. But nope. Andy was just kind of like, but so Angela's really awful. But at the same time, I feel like Dwight and Angela are good for each other. And they're like the last episode, how can you not smile when they're like dancing and like Dwight is like got her picked up because she hurts her ankle because of, freaking Mose. And he's like
If
you
want
swinging.
Your bride, if you want your bride, buy us a drink. If you want your bride, buy us a drink.
Not to cut in, but I think I might change my favorite couple to be Mose and the Scarecrow woman.
Yep, the end. Mose and his scarecrow.
Better
lady.
than Jim and Pam. Because it's so funny the way they set it up. They show, Dwight and Angela, they're up at the altar, and then they have Jim and Pam look at each other, and Bob and Phyllis look at each other, and then Mose looks out at the Scarecrow lady.
Still a better relationship than Twilight.
I was going to go with Dwight and Angela as well, actually, because I think their relationship is so funny because she's so stern. I don't know. She's like a killjoy all the time. But she, I don't know, loosens up, lightens up around Dwight. I don't know what the right way to say is. I don't know how the right way to say that is. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. So, as everyone who's watched The Office knows, and maybe some people who don't know, at the beginning of a lot of the episodes, there are these mini skits, and I just learned that they are called cold opens, where they kind of just go into a little moment where it might be a, prank, a joke, whatever. But Josh, what's your favorite cold open that you can think of, or the one that stuck with you the most?
No, I have a favorite. I know that I was pretty indecisive with all of the other ones, but I have a favorite because there's a lot of good ones. And the one that is we'll talk about later about our favorite, not too much later. We're pretty much wrapping it up. But, yeah. One of my favorite episodes is a lot because of the cold open, that it's so good. But my favorite cold open of all time is Bo Body with Creed as the manager of The Office. It is my favorite cold open so much that my lovely sister Allison got me. We have like a little family gift exchange. We both had each other. I got her a ton of Leslie Knope and Parks and Rec stuff. She got me a lot of Office stuff, and one of the things was a shirt that said Bo Body and business with a B, of course.
Business with a B or business
with a Z? Sorry. I mean, with Creed, you never know.
Right.
Honestly, but no, Bo Body is the best. The best one when he throws the keys to nobody, when he's talking to the people. And number one, he's talking to the people, and as Jim points out, he never called a meeting. Number two, he's talking and trying to separate the people into different sides of the room. Number one, there's only 2 people in the room when he's trying to split up like 10 people. And also when he's pointing out the people, he says the names of people that are either long gone from the office or have never existed. He's like, on this sign, Pam, Phyllis, Stanley, Ted, Elroy. And you're just like, what? So yeah, definitely for me, Creed can be one of the best side characters that a lot of times you love what he says, but then he can go unnoticed. Like, we haven't mentioned him this whole episode, but he's amazing. And this is definitely my favorite cold open ever.
What's the one where it's like strike, scream, and run? Like
Toby's teaching them like about prevention because
he's teaching them self-defense.
Because Andy got attacked by girls coming into work that day, or Jim.
It was Andy. He gets attacked by 12-year-old girls, and it's when Pam is super pregnant.
Oh yeah, true. And so then he's like, so he needs to
No,
do
it's
this.
right after Pam has the baby because the little girl calls her chubby, and she's like, I just had a baby.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
And so then Toby teaches them. He's like, all right, strike, scream, run. Let's practice. And oops, sorry. He says, strike, scream, run. And he's like, let's practice. And so Creed stands up and he hits Meredith in the back of the head and he goes, yeah, and he runs.
So funny every time.
Sorry, we should really move on. Otherwise, we'll talk about Creed for like a full
Yes,
hour.
we will.
Yeah.
Accurate.
The last man to do that, Creed Bratton. Allie, what's your favorite opening?
I gotta go with when Andy, Michael, and Dwight are doing parkour.
Parkour. That was the opening for like a whole season too. Which
Wait,
makes
hang
it
on.
so great.
Actually, I want to change it.
Okay.
No. Okay, you can change it, but we're leaving that in so
Okay.
we can talk about it.
Okay. But my other one, and it's kind of similar, it's because it's along the same lines, but the episode where all of them are blanking. And so Dwight like uses a fire extinguisher to like get Meredith off of a bathroom stall. Here's why this one's my favorite. It's because that is the first like little clip of The Office that I ever saw. And I thought it was so funny. I saw it in, it had to have been junior high if it was the first I ever saw.
Because that was the thing back then.
And it was so funny. But yeah, between the planking and the parkour, those two cold open. And both of them actually, incidentally, are openers to a season.
Yeah, whole seasons.
Wow. I did not know that.
This is why you're talking to us about The Office.
That is why.
We know an insane amount about it.
Do you have one, Casey? Or
My favorite opener, and I don't know if this is an opener, it's just all, like, I guess it's a combination of all, like, the pranks. Like the one where Dwight walks in and he has, you know, like, the desk is wrapped. He's like, I can wrap this in 1 minute. He, like, throws this thing down, then sits on the chair and, like, falls over. That one's always a classic because it teaches
That
you
one's an
to
opener.
expect the unexpected.
yeah, that one's an opener. So that's a
Pretty
good
much
choice.
all of like pranks on Dwight are openers. Not all exclusively, but a lot of them are.
Yeah. A lot of them are openers are also sometimes they're not like called like cold closes, but just sort of sometimes they have the little end parts, which can be a little bit unrelated, which one of my favorite ones is Kevin with his feet in the ice. But also, like some of the best Dwight pranks are also there at the very end of the episode because they've sort of been toying with him the whole time, and then at the end of the episode, the one where I really like I feel bad for him, but I just have to put it aside and be funny is the one where for her Christmas present to Jim, Pam has been sending letters to Dwight from the CIA, and they send him to the roof, and they were going to buy him a bus ticket to go somewhere really far away, but they're like, oh, it's too expensive. So maybe they're going to send a helicopter. And so then they send him something that's like, you've been compromised, abort mission, destroy phone. And he just like chucks his phone up somewhere, which I know back then, you know, he has like a flip phone. And so it's not as expensive as the smartphones we have these days, but still, it's so sad.
Those are pretty great. So here, I have 2 more questions for you before we kind of close out. The first of the final questions is, why would you recommend this TV series to anyone?
I would say The Office is, for the same reason why it's so quotable, I think, is just because it's just a nice show to have on in the background. It's going to make you smile. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you cringe. But it's going to also make you fall in love with the characters, and you're going to find something that's relatable to you.
No matter what everyone says, or that's not even good. No matter what like you think when you start watching The Office, you are going to love it, because I've talked to so many people who they say, oh, like I started The Office, but I just couldn't get past the first little while. First of all, I really love the first season, but I understand why people can have a hard time with it sometimes. But then again, I'm like, everything is going to be worth it. You're going to love everything. It's like there's so much proof. You know, everybody loves The Office, that it's going to be good. Like if for some reason you don't like it, just keep pushing and you're going to love it. The second season, number 1, is amazing. The first season, like I said, I still love the first season. The basketball episode, that is so great. What? You gotta be kidding me. Anyway, so yeah. So just like the thing is that, like Ali said, it is so quotable. It's lovable. You're going to fall in love with the characters. You're going to fall in love with the story, and it will make you laugh. I don't care how much you think you hate The Office. If you watch the entire series, I guarantee that you would laugh at least an average of once every single episode.
I love that. I think that it's true. I can sit down and watch an episode of The Office anytime and pick it up without any context. I can jump in midway. I might ask a few questions sometimes of like clarifying questions, but you can jump right in and you can get the feels, you can get the humor, you can get the cringe, you get everything you want in a short period of time, and then you're just like, huh, that was great, loved it, and you move on with your day. So yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it. The final question of the night, and I'm going to ask Josh first. What is your favorite episode of The Office?
This one I also have a definitive episode, which I would consider my favorite episode of The Office, and I sort of touched on it before. My favorite episode of The Office is Stress Relief Part 1. I mean, the whole thing is good, but especially Part 1, because it's hilarious the whole time. The cold open is one that even if you haven't watched The Office, you probably know. The opening is when Dwight sets the fire in the office and everyone's freaking out and running around, and he locks all the doors and makes them hot to make people think that there's a fire all around them. Today, smoking is going to save lives.
Well, didn't our dad say that he, didn't they show them that in a work thing, like as an emergency preparedness thing? So it's like, you've probably seen it, even if you haven't seen The Office. That's probably the only part of The Office our dad's ever seen.
Well, exactly. Well, because there's that, and then also one of the only other parts of The Office that you've seen, even if you haven't watched all of The Office, is the CPR part of that episode, where they're doing CPR, and there's every single line in this little segment is quotable. First of all, the overall part of that little segment where they're giving the dummy the compressions for CPR.
Thank
and
you.
They start
Your
singing.
local CPR first aid instructor here to tell you what the words are.
That's true. She is. From Creed saying, "You were in the parking lot earlier. That's how I know you." To Dwight wearing it as a mask because he thought it didn't look realistic in Silence of the Lambs, but it is. To Kevin saying, "Call it," after 20 seconds of doing. Every single line in that whole thing is funny. Every part. Come on, Stanley, we're losing you. That whole episode, I mean, those two scenes are some of the best scenes that The Office has ever given us ever, 100%. Which is why that episode is my favorite, but also the whole episode is rock solid all the way through.
And I've seen the CPR scene countless times because, like I said, I'm a CPR first aid instructor, and every time I teach a class, I always start off with, "We're going to show you guys what we're not going to be doing today," and I show that clip, and it makes me laugh out loud no matter how many times I've seen it.
That episode is crazy relatable, not gonna lie.
What's your favorite episode, Allie?
Yeah.
My favorite episode I have seen so many times. It's my go-to episode. If I'm in a bad mood, if I can't sleep at night, anything, I turn on The Dinner Party.
I don't know how that didn't make it onto my cringiest moments.
Every time Michael says, "Oh, that has kind of an oaky afterbirth," I lose it. It's so fun. Like, the whole episode is like the most cringy, but I cry. It's my favorite. I've seen it countless times.
You took me by the hand.
Jan says Hunter's got a lot of talent. I don't see it.
Jan thinks Hunter is very talented.
Oh, man.
But yeah, the dinner party, I love it. It kills me when Michael goes and gets the beer sign and hangs it up above.
Like all
when
Minnesota
Dwight
girl.
and his babysitter are sitting at the table eating their beet salad because they brought their own food.
And I love her because every time I watch it, I can really think of her as like an old lady babysitter because she's in The Rookie, which I used to watch a lot.
She's the mom in The Rookie.
Also, snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Do you know the physical toll that 3 vasectomies has on one person?
Fine, let's have a kid.
So much of this is, now you watch that one a lot because I know so many lines from that.
I'm probably going to watch it after we finish.
I think I will too. I'll watch both of these episodes tonight.
The dinner party, man, it's just so funny. And the fact that he gets them to his house by tricking Jim and Pam.
So smart too. Like Jim says, he's like, I gotta give it to him.
This is BS. Oh man, if you watch an episode of The Office, watch the dinner party.
I always think that people should watch The Fight because that's the one I remember the most that I originally watched back
Where
in
they
the
go
day.
to the dojo.
Yep.
Oh, that
Yep.
one. I thought you were talking about the fight between Dwight and Andy. And I
No,
was
no,
like,
no.
That one's pretty awkward. Like, I like it, but
Hits him with the car.
the Prius. Oh man, if he keeps the Prius under 5 miles
I
an
am
hour,
fine.
it's
How are
silence.
you?
I just love that part when Oscar's like, "Wow, if he keeps the Prius under 5 miles an hour, it's not gonna make any sound. He deserves this."
Oh man.
What a film series, and honestly, there's no way that we can really. I think you two have given honestly great tributes to this whole series and why people should watch it.
My favorite quote, just to end it out, is going to be the last thing that's said in the series. It's the last thing that's said in the series. Pam says it, and she says, "There's a lot of beauty in ordinary things. Isn't that kind of the point?" And I think that's why people love The Office.
Who would have thought that? This is pretty much like her final. Now, I was just thinking of saying it, but now that I think about it, this is pretty much what she says. Is she says, like, why do we love so much a series that's about all these people who work at a paper company? That sounds like the most boring premise for a show ever, and yet it is one of the. I will say that it is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, and it will be forever, and it'll be a lot of people. So ordinary things are beautiful.
And with that, we present the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast episode on The Office. Josh, thanks so much for, as always, being here.
No problem. That's what she said.
Another Office quote. And Allie, thank you so much for joining in with us tonight. I know that you've been wanting to jump in on the podcast, and I figured your love of The Office was the perfect time to introduce the world to my wife.
Thanks, Case.
So thank you for coming on. And to the rest of you, thank you so much for tuning in and joining with us. We do appreciate your listeners, your listening, your support, your ears, whatever else you're lending us, lend us your ears. Boop, 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 throwing them our way. But really, we do appreciate it. If you guys can check in with us on Instagram at Pause, Rewind, Play Podcast. If you can check in with us on Twitter at Pause, Rewind, Pla. And I'm going to get the actual website launched this coming Sunday, so you'll be able to check us out on there. And without any further ado, see you next time, guys.